Hey, good afternoon, MLS listings. How is everyone? I want to welcome everyone to this MLS listings live. This time, Real Estate Outlook 2023, and I'm going to introduce right now Tom Durezzo. Good afternoon, Tom.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. Now,
where's Michelle?
Yeah, that's. I'm sure that's the question people are asking is, where is that Michelle Ronco? Well, Michelle came down with a little something. She's on the sideline today. She's in the audience. I'm feeling Michelle. I don't think she could miss a great session with Dr. Elliot Eisenberg. In fact, I'm going to have Alicia start bringing the good doctor on as we're setting up here. There he is. He's getting his microphone all set up. And so, Tom, little change in the plan here with Michelle not here. You've worked with the good doctor many times. Good afternoon, Miss Dr. Eisenberg.
Hey, how are you, Mark? Call me Elliot, please.
Okay, I sure will. I'm loving the bow tie. It's that trademark. Going to talk about that later. Tom, let's get this thing kicked off. You've got the questions, so I'm just going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well,
who has the answers?
Who came with the answers?
Yeah. Hey, Elliot. Well, happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you, Tom. I just preferred she and Michelle, but whatever.
I know.
Yeah, I understand. We want to go ahead and jump right in and start picking your brain and having you tell us what's in your crystal ball. We've seen broad Bay Area declines. I mean, right. It's happening, and a decrease in competitiveness in some markets. However, more recently, what we've heard is that there is, in some cases, a return to multiple offer situations. We're hearing that open houses are seeing good traffic. So, what are your thoughts on the current market, and and where's the economy heading to fuel this?
Well asked, I guess. I hope I can give you something resembling a good answer. Inflation data came out this morning. 5:30 your time out there in California. And it was better, but barely. I mean, both regular inflation and core inflation fell by 1/10 of a point. It peaked in June or July at 9.1. It's now 6.4. 8 months later, after 500 basis points and increases in Fed rates, the Fed's going to continue raising rates. I think that's the single most important thing to keep in mind. Inflation doesn't appear to be going away quickly and silently. It's a pesky foe, and it's moving, it's shape-shifting, if you will. It's moving from goods to services. Goods are actually getting cheaper. Now, last couple of months, they've declined in price year over year. They're barely going up. And the opening up of China and so on is going to put deflationary pressure on goods, but it's services that keep going up. Rents continue to increase. Wages continue to increase. So the mood music by the Fed here is going to be, we're vigilant, we see inflation, we're going to continue to raise rates and expect them to stay higher for longer. They will raise in March, they will raise in May. They have an early May meeting, then they have a mid-June. They meet every 6 weeks. So then they have a March, a May, and then a June. They may raise in June possibly as well, because look, they're saying, we don't see it going away quickly. We see it slowing down. But remember, to go from 9 to 6 is easy. To go from 6 to 3 is much more difficult. I mean, think about it. If your room's a mess, cleaning the first half of it's easy. Cleaning that last half or quarter is the hard part. Moving out of a house, moving your furniture is easy. It's that crap in the third drawers, those drawers that are hard. You get that inflation, you got to clean hard, and that's what the Fed's going to do. So I don't see, I see inflation coming down slowly, but interest rates as a result of this rise in the short-term rate will probably result in long-term rates coming down.
Meaning mortgage rates?
Right. That's the kicker here. So the mood music in the short run is not so hot. The Fed's raising rates. We're not happy. But the long rates are going to say, hey, well, the Fed's going to be vigilant. we're not going to have inflation here. So long-term rates can easily fall, 30, 40, 50, 60 basis points over the year. And so the 30-year treasury goes from 3.7 to 3.1 by the end of the year. 30-year mortgage rates fall by a similar 0.6 of a point. That seems eminently reasonable. So at that point, we're in the mid-5s by the end of the year, ballpark. So that's good news. Now, the bigger question is, what does the economy do? We don't want to have a recession, right? But we can talk about that in a few more minutes. I want to get to your question. Yes, volume, I think, has absolutely declined and hit bottom. We had 4.02 million NAR data last month, and it was 4.1 the prior month. That decline of just 80,000 seasonally adjusted, annualized, and all that stuff is really good, because those were rates, the rates that were prevailing at that time several months back were 7%. So now we've gotten rates that have come down. They're still not low, but they're in the 6s, not in the 7s. And sales barely fell anymore. So I think we're done with sales volume, and sales volume now begins to pick up. The issue now is price. And I think prices continue declining. They'll come down for another 4, 5, 6 months. We know San Francisco, not your area, I understand, but similar.
Close.
Was the first city in the country with the Case-Shiller indices to show a year-over-year price decline. There will be more. They're the leading edge of this, but there'll be more places to do it. Boise will come down. Austin will start coming down. Phoenix will come down. It wouldn't surprise me if San Jose came down, all for similar reasons. Expensive home prices boomed during the boom, and now things are weaker, rates are higher, less demand, and so on. So they'll have price declines. Nothing like it was in 06, 07, 08. I mean, we can talk about that too, but I would not sit here and go, oh my God, we're going to get on that same miserable roller coaster. We're not. But there'll be some small declines. It wouldn't surprise me. 5, 6, 7, 8% year over year, probably as bad as it gets. But yeah, I also hear about anecdotally, we don't have the data yet to verify this, right? But I've spoken to a bunch of realtors in different cities, and they're all saying, hey, things are ticking up again, bidding wars, bidding over ask, and so on and so forth. So I'm guardedly optimistic that volume has declined, prices have not declined. But look, as realtors, I mean, I hate to say the obvious, but it's volume that trumps price by any stretch of the imagination. So if volumes are good, everything else will take care of itself. Now, don't start thinking we're going to sell 6.5 million units annualized like we did in early 21 and in late 21. That was just COVID and whatever. But, we won't be at 4 million. We'll get to 4.3 or 4.4 or whatever it is. There'll be some improvement.
So, talking about recession, because, I think earlier you'd said, recession or maybe soft landing, at this point, do you feel like, there is a good chance for a soft landing? And
there's your answer, Tom.
Yeah,
I really don't.
Okay.
Look, I read the data like everybody else. Was the labor market shockingly strong in January? Absolutely. Is inflation coming down? Yes. Is wage growth coming down? Yeah. There clearly are signs that things are improving, but look at all the other data. First, the thing to remember is employment growth is a lagging economic indicator. The last couple of times I did some research. I have some data I was fooling around with, but we've had recessions that began and labor growth was still good. So it's a coincidental lagging indicator. So don't look at labor force job growth. It's not a good indicator. Manufacturing is now in recession. Home construction is certainly in recession. Automobiles would be in recession were it not for them already being in recession for the last 1.5 or 2 years because of the supply chain problems. The yield curve is very inverted, and leading economic indicators are horrible.
Well, and so, we've seen in the Bay Area layoffs and it's been, fairly significant. We haven't seen that before, or at least not for a while. How does that play into how the year unfolds?
It's two things. One, the number of layoffs that Silicon Valley is experiencing isn't very big. And we have to put it into perspective. There was just an unbelievable employment growth starting in April or May or June of 2020 through 21. It was just massive. The stock prices went crazy, whether they were headquartered in Silicon Valley or headquartered, God forbid, somewhere else, like Seattle, which we won't even talk about. But, these firms all had massive employment growth. If they're giving up a little bit of their employment growth now and ratcheting back by and they all are ratcheting back by about 5%. There are some exceptions, but generally 5, 6, 7%. You go, yeah, that's not a lot of people. Now, they're heavily concentrated in a few cities in the country, Austin being the third or fourth biggest, but San Francisco, San Jose, Seattle, so on. It's more, so that's meaningful and that's unpleasant. But the stock market also hasn't been particularly good. It's been better this quarter since January. It's improved, but it's hardly been a rocket of success. And there are no IPOs going on to speak of here either. So that's what's really harming or hurting or retarding or delaying stock market, home sales and home price improvement in the whole Silicon Valley area from San Francisco down to San Jose.
Yeah. So,
but it's not big. This is not big. And it was over hiring. I mean, these people like Zoom, they really thought that they were going to be important the rest of our lives. And now we realize, look, yeah, Zoom is nice, but lots of things are nice.
Hey, and Tom, speaking of Zoom, we've got that question and answer area down below for our audience. If they're starting to think, hey, I like that idea. Let's get some more information. Folks, hit that Q&A button down at the bottom. Let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah. And Elliot, so you mentioned that, some of these layoffs or a lot of the layoffs have been in the 3 to 5%. I think you talked about it in your Econ 70 blog just last night or the day before. Could you go through that again? Because I thought that was really interesting. It was planned.
It's sort of planned. I mean, there's, there are all these corporate raiders out there. Now that's not the word anymore. They want to get a board seat and influence policy or something. But, they had a Disney struggle and Nelson Peltz and so on. These firms, they want firms to cut workers. They're overstaffed. They don't need so many. So many companies end of year kind of go through the riffraff. And what's that word? Jack Welch made it popular, rank and yank. So if you're the bottom 5 or 10%, it's been nice knowing you. Up or out is the other way to think about it, right? Yeah. So there's some of that going on. There's some of it. So that's general house cleaning. Then there's some, oh, wow, Tom's laying off 5% of his staff and Mark's laying off 5% of his staff. So why doesn't Elliot lay off 5% of his? So I'll be opportunistic about it and just jump in the fray. I hadn't really planned it, but since all the equity markets are planning for it or thinking about it, yeah, I'll do it too and give myself some elbow room, if you will. So I don't look at this as particularly meaningful, but the bigger thing here, the much bigger 30,000 foot level thing is, and this is harmful to say, and you're not going to like this, but you may not believe this even to be true, but Silicon Valley just isn't a very big employer nationally. They have a tremendous amount of money, lots of R&D, very valuable firms, right? Huge R&D in these firms, 10 billion, 5 billion a year in R&D by Google and so on. They're major. But there's only 2.5% of the labor force. So you could fire half of Silicon Valley objectively, and the unemployment data would barely show it nationally. They'd show it in Northern California. I get that. But so we sort of miss the large story by focusing in on what's going on in our neck of the woods. Now, it matters, don't get me wrong, but it's not a sign of an economy that's slowing down yet. It's just not. It's the manufacturing guys that are laying off workers. That gets me nervous. It's the firms laying off 15, 20, and 25% of their labor force. That gets me nervous.
Yeah. Okay. So we had a question actually. So you shook your head no to a soft landing. And so the question was, well, what does that mean to people in the real estate business? So it's not a soft landing. So what should our realtor audience expect or how will that impact?
Fair enough. 23 turns out to be a pretty mediocre year is the best way to put it, right? This is not going to be a bad recession. For those of you old enough to remember, that would be Mark and Tom, probably nobody else in the audience. God forbid me as a Gen Zer or something. I'm kidding. Think back to the recessions of 1990 and 2000. So the S&L crisis and the dot-com bust. They were not really bad recessions. They lasted 8 or 9 months. We moved on relatively quickly. GDP fell just slightly and so on. This will be one of those. It will not be an 08, 09. It will not be an 80, 81, 82, or a 74, 75. I mean, you've got to be 60 years old to remember that one as an adult already. But those are the three. I see someone in the audience there raising their hand. The double initial M there. But those were really horrible. Those were each the worst recession since the Depression at the time. Those were seared in people's memories. The 90 and the 2000, no one even remembers those recessions. We won't even remember the COVID recession of 2020. Remember COVID, but not the recession. So this shouldn't be an awful one. Interest rates are going to come down, which is going to be helpful, but unemployment will go up a little bit. So there'll be some give and some take. I suspect sales volume does rise despite that because there's pent-up demand for housing and lower interest rates will help. But it won't be a barn burner year by any stretch of the imagination. But it also won't be a terrible year. I mean, think this way: if an awful recession's a 1 and a terrific economy is a 10, running on full cylinders and growing really fast, and so great 10, lousy 1. Don't think of a soft landing as 10 and a horrible hard landing as a 1. Think of a hard landing as a 4 and a soft landing as a 6. There's a difference between 4 and 6, but it's not 1 and 10.
Right.
Because look, rates have gone up so much, they have to have a negative impact. There's no doubt. And we must see job growth decline. Job growth can continue at 200, 300,000 a month. Even at the end of last year, when it was 230,000 or 234,000 in December, that was well above what the economy can sustain, unless tons of workers return to the labor force, which is pretty unlikely. And not that many, not millions won't come back. So the Feds would all by itself, without COVID, without the COVID inflation, would have to raise rates to push the economy down to weaken wage growth. Because that's the key issue that they're looking at. There's a variable called core services. So it's services minus energy. I just looked today. It's been going up for 17 straight months. It's at 7.2. 1 month it was flat for like 5.5 for 2 months in a row. So think of it as not declining for 17 months instead of continuing to rise. But it's been essentially going up for 16 out of 17 months. And the Fed goes, oh my God, yeah, goods are cheaper, energy's cheaper, food's cheaper, but who cares? That's all COVID related. The key thing is that, and we're going to raise rates. And that's why we're going to have a recession, because over time, those rate hikes are going to hit us. Yeah. That's the issue. Now, we can argue how hard we enter the recession, but we're still not in a recession even. We enter into the potential recession in really good shape. So that's why it'll be a 4 or a 6 if we're lucky, not a 10 or a 1. So 4 is not great, but it isn't a disaster.
Right. Yeah. So an audience member had this question, and I think it's really true that what they're seeing out there is this disparity between buyers and sellers, where buyers and Mark and I heard this yesterday are looking for a deal, and because they think there are deals out there. Sellers are still thinking back to 2022,
March, April 2022, just a year ago. Things were so good.
Right. What do you mean my house isn't worth that much?
Right.
So how do you have any, words of wisdom, some economic nuggets that could help, bridge that gap as a realtor? How do you explain to sellers? How do you talk to
this is where realtors really earn their money.
Yeah.
This is where it is, where when you have to work with the seller and say, my gosh, I know your neighborhood house down the street sold for $200,000 more just a year ago at 1.5 or 1.3, and now it's 1.1. But here are the comps. Here are the square footage. Here's the backyard, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms. You have to show them the data and then walk them through the process and hold their hand and say to them, look, how eager are you to sell? If you can wait a year, things will turn around. Maybe don't feel forced to sell here. But if you want to sell in this market, you're going to have to take a bit of a haircut. We see this all over the place in commercial real estate as well. There's very few deals going through because the buyers on that side are also looking for a deal. The sellers are saying, no, thank you. And there's still no inventory, right? Inventory remains low. It's not as low as it was a year ago, but it's low. So as much as the buyers think they're in the driver's seat, they're in the more of a driver's seat than they were a year ago, but they ain't driving the bus here. The seller still has some control, no question, and lower rates are going to help. But sellers certainly have to be realistic about what's going on. And realtors, you have to explain. And you can show them, look at the price to list ratio, the ultimate sale price divided by list price. You know, a year ago, it was 110, 114, 106. You know, so 6%, 8%, 10% above asking price because the bid was. Now you'll see the number drifting down to 199, 98, 102. It's come down. It's still high, but it's come down. And that's an overall measure of what's going on in your city, your county, your metropolitan area. So bombard them with data and be wildly empathetic, hold their hand and help them.
Yeah.
And moreover, if they're selling to buy, they shouldn't care. Because the house that they're buying, if it's in the same area, is now also lower. So, you know, the house you sell is $1.5 million. The house you're buying is $1.5 million. Whereas before it was $1.8 million and $1.8 million. What do you care? Moreover, as a realtor, what you should be telling your buyers is take advantage of the opportunities of increased inventories that exist today. Right. And okay, so you have to get a mortgage of 6%. That's not pleasant. I get it. But in a year, it'll be lower because we're likely to have a recession and the Fed will lower rates as the recession hits and so on. And then you can refi. Again, the other thing you can do as a realtor is find a loan officer or a loan officer who works for a lender where you can get a free or cheap or half price refi next year. And if you can say, look, that way you're barely going to pay any extra money. You'll pay for a year, but in 12 months, you'll refi and you'll get a lower rate, but down by a point or 1.5 points. And hey, you'll have a house of inventory now and the low price of later. If you wait till later, prices, you know, it's not going to be much cheaper, and then rates will fall and there'll be no inventory.
Yep. So, so you know, we are heading into what typically is the peak season, but you know, if interest rates, mortgage rates are going to fall later, do we expect this peak season to be as peaky as past seasons? Do you think it'll be more muted?
It'll be more muted. Absolutely. I mean, we're looking at sales activity right now in the 2014, 2015 range. This is first-time mortgage applications. So this is before you even call a realtor up. You go to your bank or wherever it is, and you get a letter saying, I'm qualified to buy a house up and on mortgage up to 500 or 600 or $1 million or whatever it is. So this precedes a pending sale, which precedes the sale. So we're 4 months out. And we're looking at 2014, 2015, which is not a great, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't spectacular. And it's been at that level now for some time, last couple of months. So we've really hit bottom, if you will, here. So maybe it gets a little better and it's 2016 level.
Right. Okay. Okay.
It's not going to get worse. It should get better. And there's also cash out there, right? There are cash buyers. They're a higher percentage than they were in the past, right? And they're not influenced by the price of the house. Interest rates, I'm sorry.
Right, right. Okay. Okay. So going back to, you know, sort of this idea that, you know, we're heading into a recession. Is that healthier for the economy in the long term? I mean, is it something that, you know, it's just like medicine, we're going to have to take it and it'll be better in the long run?
The answer is yes. I mean, psychologically, the answer is yes. Economically, we could argue. The data economically says that if inflation's 5, 6, 7%, it doesn't seem to have much of an impact on GDP growth. Mm-hmm. So economically, I'd say who cares? But psychologically, I think it's really important. People just hate inflation. How many times have you, Mark, had this conversation when you walk into a restaurant, you and your wife go to Chipotle or something, and walk out with a bill of $40?
Yeah.
You go like, what?
Well, what happened to eggs? You know, I can't even get at IHOP, you know, with a scramble now for less than 20.
Right. So this inflation really bothers us. And if it bothers us this much, we have to get it under control. Congress has told the Fed to get it under control. That's one of their 2 jobs: high employment, low inflation. They contradict each other, but that's a whole separate other conversation. So yes, I think it's important. Moreover, we don't want the inflation to get worse because remember, once inflation gets out of the bag, if you will, like it did in the 70s, and we're not at the 70s here, Mark remembers that. Tom, you probably remember some of that too. It took interest rates of 18, 15, 16% in the early 80s and Paul Volcker, 2 recessions to break the back of inflation. Powell doesn't want to go there. He wants to get inflation kicked quickly and hard now. So he's a little behind the curve, but this is not a massive mistake here, and he'll get under control. But yes, he needs to get under control. He needs to slow the economy down. He needs to encourage firms to invest in equipment and robotics, and because we don't have enough workers. But we don't have enough workers. We simply don't. And this notion that we're going to get lots of workers back into the labor force 3 years after COVID gets pretty unlikely. Moreover, people like you and I, Mark, Tom, you get older in age, and you go, at one point, I'm going to retire. And the boomers, the peak of the boomers are now 65, 66.
Right.
So the retirements are going to start to come hard and fast, even if some younger people stay in the labor force or re-enter. The total labor force is it'll be hard for it to really meaningfully grow. Immigration's a solution. And Mark, I want you to work until you're 75, please.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
Job security.
You obviously called my wife.
She's welcome.
So, can you talk a little bit about common interest versus single family, and will the effect in the recovery be the same or different? People are always looking at single family and common interest as sort of separate markets, and they've proven in our area to be somewhat separate. So do you anticipate that one will free up before the other?
Yeah, a little bit. There's no question. I mean, you can't expand your multifam house, right? It's very hard to expand on a condominium, for example, right? Prices tend to be less expensive in the condo market, in the common interest market. And that does certainly drive a change in behavior. There's no doubt. Rates are higher. People go all of a sudden, wow. And this is all over the place. I live in Florida. I've looked at a bunch of data for Tampa Bay, for example, where there's lots of condos and lots of houses. And again, it's the condos that tend to do better at times like this of rising rates, weaker economy. People say, oh, I don't want to spend X. I'll spend X minus 30%. And that gets me into a multifamily, whether it's a townhome or a condominium or whatever it is. So yeah, those tend to do better. Prices are they're obviously cheaper. Selection sometimes is better as well, because people, in the boom times are going to run to buy a house. Well, I'll look at a condominium. So the condos have sometimes a little more inventory, and they're less expensive. That has two things going for them in these cases. So yeah, you expect them to perform a little bit better.
All right. Any questions from the audience? We want to make sure we're answering the questions of everybody out there. So I'll just pause for a moment.
A quick second and see what's happening out there.
Yeah. So Elliot, let's look forward for a second. What we're keeping our eye on inventory.
Yes, critically important. And inventory isn't what it used to be. Inventories remain quite low. It really hasn't gone up all that much in the last 6, 7, 8 months. It's gone from 2.5 to 3, nationally. But prices have come down because there's no buyers. A lot of buyers have pulled back. Move-up buyers, I'm sorry. They're locked into their mortgage. So we're all kind of waiting for interest rates to come down to get that conveyor belt motoring, where I bought a house 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I now have twins. I want to sell that house and buy a house with an extra bedroom or two. But I don't want to go from a 3% mortgage, which I refinanced during 2021, to now a 6% mortgage. As rates come down, that will help. So inventory is not don't think of inventory like it was before. We have to get back to 5 months. We may well not get back to 5 months because we've underbuilt so much.
Right. So we're looking at inventory. Obviously, we're expecting prices to, decrease, come down a little bit. If we start seeing 10% year-over-year drops, we're we're okay, but if it's 20%, we're starting to get alarmed.
That's a whole different story. That's a whole different
Yeah.
story. And it's also more important, is it national? I mean, I don't mean, if it's in Pittsburgh, yeah, whatever, I hate to sacrifice Pittsburgh to the housing price gods, but, any one city can have any one weird one-off problem. Pittsburgh Plate Glass, PPG decides to close down a plant, or the Steelers decide to stop playing football or something, and things go to hell. But if we see nationally, it's unlikely, and I'll tell you why. Inflation is relatively high. So right now, if we had year-over-year price appreciation of 0, to keep the math really easy, year-over-year price inflation 6-7%. So we've actually experienced a 6 or 7% decline in real home prices. So inflation is doing a lot of the home price reduction dirty work for us, under the covers, if you will, or on the down low. Whereas 13, 14 years ago, inflation wasn't that high. So home prices had to really come down to really come down. Now they don't have to come down that much to come down. If we get a 3% decline in home prices, from $1 million to say 970,000, 3%, but there's inflation of 7, that's a 10% decline in home price. People won't think of it that way, but it is. Because real incomes, they're going up a little bit every year or flat, they suddenly become cheaper.
Yeah.
So inflation is doing a lot of the work, and therefore prices don't have to come down nearly as much. So I'd be very, and the recession won't be so bad, and the inventory's tight, and rents are high, and people put down 10%. And most people won't lose their job. Not many people won't lose their job like it was in 13, like it wasn't in 08, 09. And banks and credit unions and borrowers, not lenders, realize they don't want to own houses. It's not good business for them to be in. So demographically, we're very favorable. The number of 30, 31-year-olds now is very high, whereas 13 years ago, we were in a bit of a demographic desert, if you will. So inflation's much higher now. So I didn't know. That was not articulate, the ending there, but you get the point.
Right, we do. So, you've indicated, we're heading into a recession, but what's your crystal ball say about the duration? Is
not long. Good question.
Yeah.
Great question. Yeah. Great question. Not long.
Okay.
It's 9 months, 10 months, 7 months. If you look at recessions in the US since the Great Depression, which was those recessions were in the early 30s. There were 2.
Yeah.
They're not long, with the exception of those 3 bad ones, the 74, 75, 80, 81, 82, the double dipper, and the 08, 09 recession. Those were the only 3 that exceeded 10 months. They were 16 or 18 months. Each of them were either 16 or 18. So those are much, much longer than the normal recessions. This is a normal recession, so I don't think it's that long. So if we go into it, say in July, August, September, October, November, December, Jan, Feb, say, March, we're out.
Okay, so next year when we do this, we'll be on our way out of the recession, hopefully.
If all goes well, that's right. Yeah. A year from now, we're a much happy bunch of campers, or we've hit bottom already, and things are starting to improve, and the Fed's lowered rates, and we know that the end is in sight. I think that's the issue. That's also the issue. And there's nothing fundamentally wrong with our economy right now. It's not that we have an oil embargo or 18% inflation or home prices that are crazy high. They're a little high, but because of supply and demand, because lack of building. I mean, it's a different story here.
So earlier, you were talking about the people that secured their mortgage at 3.5%, and now at 6%, but it's going to come down.
Yes.
But are we gonna see 3% again? Is that a possibility?
Let's hope not. I think that's also part of the kit bag story explanations that realtors offer clients and say, look, those super low interest rates that we saw were because of COVID and because of the fear of COVID and the Fed flooding the market with liquidity and banks pushing money in banks and the Fed, the Congress giving us money and all this weird stuff that was going on, stimulating us both on the fiscal side and the monetary policy side, both. Hopefully those are both over. Hopefully our economy goes back to a normal trend growth of 150,000 jobs a month, 1.8 million a year, which would be nice. And there's interest rates are higher than they were, not high, but higher.
4 to 5%.
Yeah, you get 5%. I'd be pretty happy with a 5% interest rate. on a 30-year mortgage, right? A 3.5% 30-year bond, 3% 30-year bond, something like that.
Okay.
That would make me a pretty happy camper.
Yeah.
Maybe 4.75, 4.6. That would possibly be there. So 4.5 to 5, something like that range at the terminal rate, a year from now, a year and a half from now. And rates always come down. They always come down. You have to remember this. Don't think this high rate we're seeing now is forever. It's not. Don't extrapolate from this that rates are going to keep going up or stay high. No. Paul Volcker lowered rates, 1,700 basis points or 1,600, which means 16 percentage points. I mean, crazy numbers he would do. You see a recession come, they start to lower rates.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Eisenberg, not to put you on the spot, but what are the 70 words you would say that a real estate agent should always have in their brain when they're talking with a prospective client or an established client? What is that 70 word, elevator pitch?
That's the elevator pitch. Exactly right. It's first, know your market, know your market, know your market, know your market, know your comps, do your market analysis, know what's going on, and be confident of the comps that you're showing. Here are 5 comps compared to your house. They're all sold in the last 6 weeks or whatever it is, 2 months, this price, similar size, similar background, similar yard, similar square footage, similar view,
Right.
Next, I know this market really well. I've been doing this for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 18 years, whatever it is, right? I give great service. I answer phone calls. I talk to you. I walk you through the process. I really care about my clients. This is not a one and done. This is the first of many if all goes well, and your kids and your grandkids and so on.
Right, and your best friend.
I'll help you. There'll be no drops or errors or earned runs, if you will. I have great people who work with me from, if you have to fix your roof or fix your heating system or your heat pump or whatever it is, we're going to get it done. You have to install a fire detector. I know who to call. I can take care of all these things. Clean your basement. I got it for you. I'm going to make it easy. I'm going to make it simple. I know the business. That's the key. I
like that. Know your numbers, know your numbers, know your numbers. And then know your listings, know your listings, know your listings. Right.
And know also that people don't respond to numbers. They're going to say, oh, he knows their numbers. That's good. But I don't like them. They're not nice or whatever. They turn me off. You've got to appeal to their heart. You've really got to get them here. I love your neighborhood. I grew up here. I was in that house. My brother bought that house next door to yours. My best friend lives in that neighborhood. I go there all the time.
That's strong.
Let them know that you know their neighborhood. You're not just some carpetbagger from 2 towns over.
Right. Who just happened to drive through this week for the first time. Absolutely. Tom, what are you thinking?
Well, so another question from the audience. This one is about the 2 industries. You've got new homes, new builds, and you've got pre-owned homes. And do they compete for the same home buyer or not? I
don't think so generally. I mean, there's some competition. It goes without saying. You'd be a fool to not look at what, where the new homes are vis-a-vis the existing homes. But existing homes are fundamentally different. Someone wants a home from 1910, or some old Victorian or something in San Francisco, for example. Or you want a certain location. If you want a location, you can't get a new home in most locations because new homes are only built, generally speaking, at the exurbs or suburbs or wherever it is, farmland that's being converted or whatever it is, or it's a different style that you don't necessarily want. People, I mean, if I, for example, really could care less whether I buy a new home or a used home, it's important to find that out from your buyer. Hey, what do you want? What do you want me to show you? They are fundamentally different, and here's why. Space, household design, great room. Great rooms looked great up until COVID, and then they looked horrible. Well, now COVID's over. Maybe you like great rooms again, right? I don't know. Who wants a dining room? All the homes in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they have dining rooms. So, what do you imagine your house looking like and feeling like? So there's, the new homes offer a very different, and old homes from different eras offer very different feels. I think it's important for realtors to know that. I mean, what does a split level offer you? I happen to not like split levels myself, but that's a personal thing. But know what a split level, know what a Victorian, know what a colonial, know what a ranch, and now say, oh, new homes now, they're all going up there looking like that. If you want this, you can't even, don't waste your time. You're not going to find one.
Right.
Save them time.
Not going to find a new build Eichler out there. As they say, they're just not making them anymore.
Right. So you can save, if you can help your client by saying, where do you want to live? Oh, I want to live in there. Well, there's no new homes there. Or there are a lot of new homes because that's a new subdivision just went up and there's tons.
Well, and so, the new home builds, like the National Association of Home Builders, what's happening with inventory and prices? Are they getting hit pretty hard?
They are. Inventory now, new home inventory is 9 months. That's a little deceptive because that includes homes that have been built, so they're done, and the builder's servicing the interest on a full home, and they're dying on those homes. Then there's homes being built, and then there's homes that haven't even been started but have been permitted. Those are much less harmful. So there's a growing number of the first. That's the telltale sign. If you're looking to buy a home for a client and they're indifferent between what they're looking to buy, they really don't care, you owe it to your client to look at a new build, because these builders are generally really desperate to sell because it's all business to them. They're not attached to the house. They want to get, if house prices are falling by 0.5% a month, they don't want to wait 3 months to sell that house that's worth, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 less. They want to move the merchandise here, or a house that's being built. They want to know that they have a seller in 3 months when it's done. They're much more willing to part with the product, if you will, than maybe Mark, who's, has his 37 children have grown up there, and he's going to wail like a child as they move him out of the house there. But people are attached to their home. They care what the next person does. The builders don't care. So, they have a lot of inventory now because sales have weakened, and therefore, and they've got a lot of this stuff in the back. And there's multifam as well. Yeah, multifam has extra inventory not coming on, but homes being built that were delayed because of COVID and supply chain problems. You've got single fam and multifam in the process that are at or near all-time record highs in both, that are each 300,000 above their normal traditional levels, which means there's going to be more inventory coming on. That's where to get a good deal or look for a good deal there.
Yeah. I'm aware of a development that was 6 months to complete the build. A lot of the transactions fell through because in that 6 months, the prices were falling, and so it made sense for them to lose their deposit and renegotiate. Right?
Yeah, they'll lose $25,000 escrow money on a $1 million house. Who cares, right? And it's not enough to matter. Right. You can buy an existing house. There's more, or there's more new homes on the market, whatever. But the new homes may well be a better deal, because the builders are more eager to sell them. And they're also offering awesome deals, 2-1 buy downs. They may not negotiate on the price, but they may well negotiate by giving you a 2-1 buy down, giving you a finished basement, a finished attic, better appliances, better bushes. I mean, they'll get rid of the builder grade stuff and really bump up your stuff, or give you a third garage. I don't know, I'm making it up, but you can push the builder hard for your client to get something and walk out looking like a hero in the process.
Yeah.
Nice. Dr. E, it is always so enjoyable to have you with us, and what you see out there and how you bring it to our subscribers. It is so valuable to us. I greatly appreciate it. One of the other points of value, I think Tom mentioned it before, is your blog.
Text Bowtie.
Okay.
66866.
66866.
It's Bowtie, one word. One word. BOWTIE, no hyphen, no space, one word, Bowtie. 66866. You'll be prompted for an email address. You'll put it in, and you'll be hearing from me every day.
Every day. And what words of wisdom? What do you drop on the people every morning? What are you letting them know?
It's the important stuff of the times. I try to be very current. So what's the issue du jour, if you will? And on Fridays, it's always very funny. So last Friday, we talked about 2 indicators for Super Bowls. One was the team wearing white jerseys has been on a real win streak, and sure enough, they won. And if an old NFL team, so before the merger, if they were in the NFL, this would have been the Eagles. If they win, the stock market rises. So boo-hoo. Kansas City won. So the joke was sell everything, move on. I'm kidding. Don't.
This sounds like the groundhog coming up, and seeing the shadows.
But it gives you the key thing that the 70 words gives you is insight into the economy that you can share with other people. Look, your job as a realtor. Look, I sold my house. You would think I know everything about housing, and I do. And I hired a realtor to sell my house because I don't want to sell my house. I got time. I don't have time. I do other things for a living. Leave it to the pros. So I'm going to give you every day bite-sized information on labor markets, on home prices, on inflation, on the Fed, on demographics, whatever, car prices that you can share and be up on as a result. And as a result, not sound intelligent, be intelligent.
Right, be relevant.
Be relevant.
Yeah.
Even if you aren't reading the business section every day in the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times and the Investor Business Daily.
Got it.
So one final question, if I could, which is, we hear about national statistics, but we like to think that the Bay Area is special and different.
You are, Tom. You are special.
Yeah.
So are you, Mark.
Thanks. Thank you.
And so the question is, do you think that our area will perhaps rebound faster? That we're in a better position, or just will follow the national trend?
No, you're not. You are special here. In this particular case, you really are special. There's no question. The tech heavy sector that you're in is so heavy and so big and drives so much and is so income-wise so major, and these companies are so valuable, and the stock options people have, and the IPOs and near IPOs, the what's the word, unicorns that are out there, and so on. The stock market drives home prices in Silicon Valley. This is the only part of the country, maybe Seattle a little bit, but it's one of the very few that has this unique relationship to stock prices and IPOs. Other cities, it doesn't matter. So the stock market really matters, and IPO health really matters a lot. And when that takes off, home prices will go back up with them. So again, this is not a bad time to buy when those markets are the stock market's middling to middling, and IPOs are really largely going nowhere. If you want a house, this is a good time to buy it, interest rates aside.
Perfect.
All right.
So bow tie to 66866, get you 70 words per day. Keep you in touch with not only your marketplace, but what's going on at a national level on a lot of different topics that you can then relate to your clients and be the relevant expert in your marketplace. Dr. Elliot, thank you so much for being with us today. Just greatly appreciate your time.
Oh my gosh, it was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to next time. See you all in 3 months, I guess, roughly 3 months.
Wonderful. And Michelle will be here even if we have to prop her up so she can get to where.
But it was fun. It was fun, Mark. It really was. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Hey, if you really enjoyed this session with Dr. Eisenberg, Tom, we've got a brand new podcast. You and Michelle sat down. You took some documents that we've sort of had for a long time. We just kept them hidden away from everybody. But these are quarterly reports, right?
They are. Yep. We get them every quarter. So the latest one is Q4 2022, but in April, we'll be publishing Q1 2023.
Okay. And then we took it and we turned it into a podcast. You and Michelle took sort of the big points of what Dr. Eisenberg put on paper, and you really bring out and had a dialogue back and forth, and it's getting some great response where it's sitting right now on our YouTube. You folks that are on the iPhone or Apple Podcast, we're going to have it there for you. We'll get it over onto a Google site as well. But hey, folks, take a look at our YouTube site and grab that podcast. Great for you're stuck on traffic, Tom, on 280. You're just trying to get from Cupertino to Santana Row. Hey, that's a good one for you. Tom, the new Oculus minutes are up and running. We've got them on the website available. This is January data. Okay.
Yep.
Video
Yep.
shorts you designed to send to your client, right? It's just music over. Hey, and if you want to get them the fastest, you want to make sure you get them every month. So when you get to the YouTube site, subscribe to the YouTube site, and we'll keep you posted. And then, of course, we've got the MLS Listings open forum. We've been doing this for a while, Tom. We used to call it office hours, changed it this year, but still the same concept. An hour with the experts from the MLS, whether it be product, your group. You always send Jeffrey Lambrex, who's sort of our master of matrix and listing management. There's going to be someone there from compliance. There's going to be someone there from the call center. Dave and I will be there. Michelle is usually, she's sort of the ringleader of the whole thing, keeping everybody moving. But this is your absolutely your opportunity to ask us what's going on. What's the product? What's the company? What's the leadership? We're looking for any and all questions. Please come and join us. You'll see the banner on the Pro Home site when at the end of the month. It's the last Tuesday of the month at 2:00. Last Tuesday at 2:00. So, Tom, brand new report.
Yeah, we're excited about this. This is the first really all new report that we've released at the county level.
Okay.
For our subscribers. So for the first time, you can get county level data, and it's broken down into a price distribution report. So it goes back over 8 quarters, and you can see how many properties were sold in each price band. And what's interesting and what's special about this is that the price bands are particular to each county.
Right. Tailored. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in San Benito County, you're going to have different price bands than you would have in San Mateo County.
Got it.
And it's 8 quarters worth of data so that you can see what's happening with prices and with inventory. And it's just a great new report that we're really excited about.
So this will be updated quarterly, and it's at county level. And this, Tom, is exactly what Dr. Eisenberg was talking about. Have your data, know your data, be able to talk to your clients about what's going on and what's going on in your specific neighborhood. We got lots of reports on the Aculus portal for that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're working with somebody that's in the $2 million price range, you can give them very accurate data on how many properties were sold over the last 8 quarters by quarter. So
good, folks. You're going to find that on the Pro Home site, bottom right corner, Aculus reports. There's a button there, and Tom, on the brand new Home Pro site, there's a button there too. The new Pro dashboard up on that top blue taskbar at the very top. You can put that Aculus portal reports available.
Yes, they would need to go in and configure that, but you configure it once and it's there.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Sounds great. Folks, thank you very much for joining us today at MLS Listings Time. Tom, great show, I think.
I'm so glad that you were able to come in. I didn't want to do it alone. And, really, we're missing Michelle, but she's been super helpful in the background.
Yeah, has she ever? Oh, boy. You can't let her go too far. She's always there for us as well, and there for all of our members. So, folks, we hope you see you out in Zoom land at your sales meetings, at your tour meetings, and certainly we're always available for you at pro.mlslistings.com. Tom, great day. Thank you for being with us.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Make sure to check out our Pro Support page for additional videos on a full range of topics. And don't forget to click that subscribe button on our MLS Listings YouTube page.